Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment I almost went into one of my imitations that would have been interesting, and people would have said, why is he doing that? This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Post-COVID, folks, it's, as you know this, it's not that easy to find products out there. That's true of just about anything, and it's certainly true in building materials as well. But when you've got 100 years of connections and experience like A.G. Hines does, you're able to get building materials that some of the big boy shops aren't able to get. And that's where you should start your building project. If you're doing something home improvement wise, A.G. Hines Company is the folks to go to. Get down and see them. They're on Hines Street in Knoxville, right downtown. You can find them online. You can give them a call. Great company, and the chances are, if you're looking for building materials, they have what you need. Better chance of finding it with them than some of these other big name guys right now. All right, let's take a look here at some of Tennessee's commitments in July, if we can get to this. There we go. While we're looking at that, the Vols are still only ranked number 37 in 24/7 sports rankings. That's as of yesterday. But it does seem that things are starting to heat up a bit. You see the 5 commitments this month. You also see Cameron Miller, just 4-star, I believe, in Rivals, 3-star 24/7, out of Memphis. But more so than that, the one that stood out to me was Walter Nolan, who didn't have Tennessee in his top 8. And now he's the #1 player in the country, according to ESPN. He's the top guy out of Cordova, West Tennessee. He didn't have Tennessee in his top 8 back in April. He came out with his top 5 just a week or two ago, or just last week. Tennessee's in it, okay? So I think, and again, I'm not saying pop any champagne bottles at the moment, but if you're a Tennessee fan wondering how Josh Heupel is going to be able to recruit, okay, he finally got to be able to talk to Walter Nolan, and all of a sudden you've got this guy who's the #1 player in the country, and he's at least considering Tennessee, even though you've got all the things that are working against Tennessee. Maybe I'm taking that as too much of a positive sign, but I think when they hired Josh Heupel, we made the comment, or I did, and I think most of us agreed that even the worst coaches at Tennessee pretty much wind up at the top 15 class every year. I think Josh Heupel will wind up in that ballpark. The fact that, okay, you're selling a crummy product right now, considering what's hanging overhead. You get the #1 player in the country to suddenly pay attention to you? It tells me that when all things are equal, whenever this NCAA stuff's behind them, he's going to be okay recruiting. Am I reading too much into that? Am I being, as usual, am I being way too positive? The big mouthpiece for you too?
Well, that's how you're known around town.
Yeah, that's my reputation.
So that should be the assumption here. But no, I agree. Things have improved. Walter Nolan's a good example. Getting Cam Miller on board is good for Tennessee, and getting a couple of guys at that wide receiver position. Addison Nichols is a 4-star offensive lineman who has Tennessee in his top 3, and I think the Vols are in really good shape there, and that's a really important position. Add that to the conversation. Getting receivers is great. I also think they'll be fine there. If you can get highly touted linemen to hop on board, that's what can make the difference in climbing. But yeah, big picture, I think they'll be okay. Rodney Garner is a guy that's recruiting the SEC for a long time. That probably helps with Walter Nolan. So it's still going to take some time, and if you finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, that doesn't do you any good. But being in the top 5 is better than not being in the top 8, right?
Yeah.
Well, and to the point about Nolan, a few months ago he had a top 8 and Tennessee wasn't on it. Now he comes out with a top 5, Tennessee's on it. There's strong rumors he's moving to Knoxville, that he may end up going to Catholic or Powell. Maybe Maribel's in the picture, but there's a lot of talk about him moving to Knoxville. If he does, wouldn't you think that would enhance Tennessee's chances? I mean, they're going to get him, but you would think it would enhance your chances. And if you get him, he could be the Pied Piper for the class of 2022. So I think it's big that they're in the picture for him, and I do think they've made up a lot of ground with him. And I do think with some of the commits they're getting with the cloud you're talking about, the NCAA cloud, I think that they are going in the right direction recruiting.
Yeah, I think it's positive. And with Walter Nolan, those talks about him moving to Knoxville, that's got fans on another level excited, because now there's an assumption that, hey, he's coming here for a reason, right? There's not a precedent that every time that happens that a player commits to that hometown school, but it's a positive. And look, this is something that will have legs in being in the mix for Walter Nolan, even if he doesn't pick Tennessee. I think that staff will be able to use that and have legs towards continuing to build the class. If they get him, then that gives them that stamp of credibility, that validity that they need as a brand new staff. So it's positive, and ESPN has none of that class, no players in the class in the top 300, but they still have 3 players that are 4 stars. So that's more than some others. I still think it is a positive direction with this run of players that they've added on since camps and recruiting face-to-face opened up.
Yeah, and again, I've said this before. I also am going to give him more leeway with 3 stars when you're talking about offense.
Right.
Because I've seen what he's done, UCF, Missouri. Oh, I know what he can do with lesser recruits in terms of on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, there, if you're going to tell me you've got to get 4 and 5 stars, get it on defense. I'll trust you on offense to make the most of it.
Yeah.
But I think, you look at this, the Nolan thing. Okay, it should calm people down a little bit. There was a little bit of panic in the air that this guy can't do anything when he's running around with 2 commits just about 2 months ago. All right, this seems to be suggesting that he's going to be okay in the long haul. Even if he doesn't get Nolan, the fact that he's gotten you back in the conversation with everything that's working against him, I think that's positive.
And here's the thing, too. If you don't think recruiting dynamics can change, look where Tennessee was recruiting a year ago at this time.
Right.
And boy, that just fell apart. So
Yeah.
you never know.
But at least you got all those guys on campus. All right. When we come back, we'll take a look at some of the preseason magazines, their views on the Volunteers. They're not great. Are they too low? We'll discuss that, and then later we'll take a look at ESPN's projected Tennessee's record with their FBI system, which I think is batty. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk future schedules, new contract for Tony Vitello. We got a lot to come. So come on back on the Sports Source.